And I want to start by saying, what exactly does a military attaché do? I mean, the traditional perception, of course, is that he basically is a sort of commissioned or authorized intelligence person.
Probably this is one of the perception, as you
Right.
know. But really, our main job in any places as a military attaché, we represent the armies in the country that we related in order to have some more connection for the training, military relationship, exchanges for officer and non-commissioned officer, to create the build how we connect more in the defense policies and our government want to do in the countries that we have relationship. We are part of the embassy teams, and also we are connected for the policy the ambassador have in different, in this case, Chile and United States. In my particular case, as a chief of the Chilean military mission here in the United States, I am the representative of the Army. I also have my responsible for all the officers and non-commissioned officers that are working in the United States in different places. For example, we have a liaison officer in Fort Benning, Georgia, in the Western Hemispheric Institute. We have a liaison officer in the Foreign Military Sales in Huntsville, Alabama. We have another colonel in the Fort Leavenworth in the CAC organization for the United States, the doctrine and where the people have the staff master's knowledge. And also we have a lieutenant colonel in 82nd Airborne Division in Fort Bragg. All those people work for in the chain of my command. And this is the reason that as a military attaché and also the chief of this mission, I am very in relation for the mil-to-mil relationship with the United States Army. That's in this case is very special relationship because we have some relation for the Army as institutions, but also we have a very operational relationship with the Southcom.
Yes.
All
right.
the combined operation of the Army Southcom, but also in particular with the part of the Army is Army South. This is a place in San Antonio.
Oh, right.
We have a bilateral agreement with this Army, and that's a lot of bilateral meeting and different technical seminars or technical support in different ways.
Well, that exactly is what I was going to. You have bilateral talks every year with the U.S. With your U.S. military counterparts.
Exactly.
And last year, after these talks, Colonel Fernandez, who was one of the people there, was quoted as saying, "quote, there are key issues that must be discussed." Could you give me some idea of what these issues actually are?
Yes. Well, actually, we are very close for the next meeting in the last week of October and the first of November. We'll be in San Antonio this year because it's every year we have one in Chile, one is in the United States. But one of the key issues that we are talking about is special to working together and how we can build more professional relationship to see how to react, for example, in disaster relief, and to create forces that we are more ready to respond in our countries, how to resolve this emergency. That is, you know, Chile has a lot of sometimes no good experience about how to face this phenomenon for the disaster. But at the same time, there's some opportunity for the Chilean armed forces to learn about how to react, because we have a lot of earthquakes, and the last one was a big one,
yes.
Tsunami, and this is not new, because it's a long time Chile have this kind of event. The biggest one in the world was in 1960. It was the earthquake 9.5.
Right.
And at this time, all the institutions in Chile learned more about how to deal with that. And what is the key issue that is in the bilateral talking? We are trying to build more relationship about that.
Is the other thing is last year the Chilean armed forces made major arms acquisitions. I mean, you were really on I would say, a buying spree. F-16s from the United States, tanks, I believe, from the Netherlands, ships from Britain and somewhere else, I forget where. And the what was the main purpose of this? I mean, you're the chief of your military, General Fuente Alba. He talked about transforming Chilean armed forces. Is that what's happening? Is this a period of transformation?
Well, the transformation for the Chilean armed forces occurred the last 8 years. This is a process, you know. This transformation is not for the 1 year and another.
Right.
This is the period at least 10 or 15 years. And that's the reason you mentioned there are some new equipment that they renew the old stock for the Chilean armed forces, the new aircraft and some chips and new tanks from Germany, and also we have a project that just finished with the United States based system, with the artillery M109. This is an old ones, but we renew, we an update here in the United States. But the main purpose for that is to put the forces in actually in technology, and because we have a white book for the defense, it's open for all the people, and in this book, we define what is our purpose for defense policies and what is our interest in to promote peace in the region, but also to protect our interests inside the country, and also some interests we are working in, for example, Haiti, to extend our interest in promoting peace in part of our continent. As any state, they need to have armed forces to protect their own interests, and we are very convinced about that. We have an force in according with our economy and our people and our state interest. This is the need to have a force ready to respond in any case, even in this kind of natural disaster, because we don't have National Guard as the United States have. We have sometimes both tasks. The forces need to very flexible to respond in different kind of those things. This is I'm sorry. As for example, it's a typical example when you said we have firefighters.
Yes, right.
If you have firefighters to prevent a fire, it's important you have all the equipment ready every time,
right.
not after the fire, because if you shoot or look the element after the fire, it doesn't work. It doesn't make sense, and that's the reason we are working to have the armed forces in all the equipment in accordance with our economy and the state of the country.
Right. Well, actually, what I was talking about was F-16s, which is the combat planes.
Right.
Right. Which you bought from the United States, I believe.
Yes.
Right.
And the United States and Holland.
And from Holland. That was what you got from Holland. Well, it's let's have a see. Well, what is the actual size of the Chilean armed forces?
The armed forces it's the army. I think it's the biggest force in order for the people in Chile. I think it's typical from any places. The army is more bigger in soldiers, and Navy and Air Force. We have three forces. I said how big is in order for how to protect the country, and people is more than 2,000 people in total. The three forces, three branches.
2,000?
2,000, yeah. And also 200,000. 200,000. The army is 38,000 people in active duty and professional, and also we have some part of the conscriptions or draft system.
I see. You do have a draft system.
We have mixed. We have some professional soldiers, and also in the small part of the drafts and conscript system.
I see. Compared to the other countries in the hemisphere, is it a large army? I mean, is it the biggest or the
No, we are not the biggest, not at all. We have a very, in the average for the region,
I see.
because of the country, we have 17
right.
million people, and it's in a very, I think, equivalent with the size of the country are.
But you've never, I mean, Chile hasn't actually been to war for since the 19th century, right?
Exactly.
I mean, you may well have come close to it, I would imagine, during the Beagle problem, when I think both yourselves and Argentina were on a state of alert.
Right.
However, this was resolved by the Vatican.
By the Vatican. Thanks God.
Thank God, yeah. But that was it. I mean, that's the last time
we had the
that you were
treaty,
summoned.
and we have very, very good relationship with Argentina, and also even between armed forces, we have a very, very close relationship. We have exchanged. Even we create a combined unit with Argentina. We call Cruz del Sur or South Cross.
Right.
This is a combined unit we are ready to use under the United Nations mandate. And it's,
do you ever envision? Do you ever imagine a situation where, in the hemisphere, you might have a NATO type arrangement, something like the North Atlantic Agreement?
Well, this is difficult to understand and to say yes or no in the same model, or exactly what
right.
this kind of model. But we have some very interesting new initiative in the hemisphere we call UNASUR.
Yes.
And on this umbrella we have some talking about the defense agreement, and they create a board for all the ministers of defense to talk how we work more together in order to face the new threats that were around the world, for the typical or non-typical conventional threat that the world face today, as you have here in the United States, the terrorism, narco traffic, and illicit drugs, and all that kind of stuff. We have some initiative in order for this umbrella, the UNASUR, and also in OES. There is some topic about that. We have some organization as the International American Board, the International Defense American Board, that is 22 countries together work with OAS to advise in military and on security issues.
Is there, for UNASUR, is there a particular headquarters somewhere, or is this done on an ad hoc basis?
UNASUR have some pro tempore presidencies, and they're moving in the country. But we have some permanent defense organization in Buenos Aires.
Right.
This is the place where we have some.
Well, I mean, for Chile today, who is the enemy?
Well, the enemy, I think, for the countries, in particular Chile, the enemy is how to face and to defeat the poor, and how we moved from the underdeveloped country to the developed country. We are facing very, very close to move forward as a more developed country. We have a very good indicators in the economic side, in social and cultural, that we are very close to face or to move forward in this new area. Our president, and if you read the newspaper, and the government said probably have a very, very good opportunity to, in the next 10 years, we have probably go up for these developed countries. And I think this is the most important fight today, all together, all the institutions in Chile, how we move forward to defeat the poorest, the people that live sometime in order in the condition that we want to do, or we want to give those opportunity in the education, culture, and the more well-living.
But how does the army contribute to that?
Well, the army, I think the best important contribution is to give security for the development. Any organization needs as a basics the security for to work, for to live in peace, to create the best opportunity for the investment or investors go to Chile because your country is safe, is in order, all the institutions work very professional, and that's the armed forces in order to give all this environment to protect, give safety, give confidence, and that's the reason we think in the last 10 years we are moved more in order to show this kind of intention. And also, as you mentioned, 100 years without in peace, is that part of the armed forces are very efficient in to protect and to avoid any kind of contingency. But at the same reason, you need to stay ready and prepared, because the deterrence is working when you have an forces credible, efficient, and sizable.
But although you had no war, of course, you have had internal disturbances, an internal upheaval which has relatively recently been resolved, and you have now completed your transition to democracy. This transition had implications for the army, for the armed forces. How did the Chilean armed forces make this transition how can I say, and liberate itself from the reputation that it had, for being associated with the previous regime?
Well, as you know, Chile has a new democracy for the last 22 years.
That's right.
And the army forces, I think, had a very key role in this process.
Mm-hmm.
After the 80s, the 90s, the same armed forces that was in power give the power for the political parties in order after the free election, when we move for the new area in democracy. I think was the best the best example for how the armed forces assume the new roles in this new period for the democracy. We are very conscious we are under the political mandate. We are apolitical forces. We are under the Ministry of Defense and our President, the Chief of State. And we are working very close for the community, and we are very transparent in to move for our role in the country, in this part of the area. Chile has a very long democracy history.
Absolutely.
And the armed forces are working very close every time with all this process. We understand we are part of the state, and we are part of the government in charge to run the government. And I think we feel very comfortable for our role in this democracy state. And I think also the population give us a very good answer, because in the schools we are probably the third or fourth institution more valuable in the country.
I see.
And this is very important for us. And we are put a lot of effort to put more emphasis into our professionalism and our task as forces to promote the peace and also to support the population.
Right.
So we are part of the population.
One of the interesting things about Latin America today, as I'm sure you know better than I do, is that while Europe and the United States are struggling with coping with the recession and with the economic problems, Latin America as a whole is the untold story in this, because it is generally more prosperous and free of the kind of crises that we are facing here. In general, I mean, what sort of future do you see for your continent, for the hemisphere?
Well, it's a very interesting question in the economy side of the conversation. But I think our continent, in general, Americas, all, Canada, United States, Mexico, Central America, and South America, all the countries, I think, in my personal opinion, have a very good chance to move to create the best condition to our economy's growth and more healthy, because in general our country has a special, the country that we call emergency economies.
Right.
They're more in order. They grow every year at least an average of 3 or 4 or 5%. And that's the reason I think we have moved more the root economy into create more technology, manufacturing technologies, and
right.
and I think we, in my opinion, have a very clear future for the next generation. And in particular in Chile, we have a very open free market for almost 30 years ago.
Absolutely.
We decided we are a small economy, but we said, well, if we want to stay in the markets around the world, we need to open our economy. And that's the reason we did that 30 years ago. That's the reason we are more comfortable, more prepared to face this kind of environment. And I think we did a very good job in order how to face this new era of the free economies.
What is your relationship with China?
Well, we have a relationship
I mean, as military.
Yeah, political and military. We have a long time relationship with China. And during the whole 30 years or 40 years ago, we have mission, we have military attaché in China, and this is more that to know more about how the institution works. We don't have material exchanges because we don't have technology from China. And I think our military relations is more than to talk and to have some exchange for the languages and to exchange some people and to educate in some institute. But no more than that, because we're very different in how we will deal with the technology.
But also your industrial base is copper, isn't it?
Yes.
And you export copper to them in great quantities.
Exactly. That's I think our relationship with China is more in the economic side.
Right.
Because he's the #1 buyer in copper in Chile right now.
Sure.
And this,
right. Well, let me just ask you a final question, and that is, I know you obviously your relations with the United States are pretty good, and you have these regular contacts. I think it is, what, 4 countries in Latin America that have this annual bilateral, yourselves, Brazil, Colombia, and somebody else, and I can't
Salvador and Chile.
Salvador and Chile. So, what would you like from the United States that they don't give you?
I think we have a very good talk in any topics and in any things that we are thinking we can deal in the new future for new things. And I think what's the most important for the future is how to create more understanding to cooperate each other into response for disaster relief, for example. I think this is one of the way we can move more to create the best thing to not only to stay to support people in Chile.
Right.
If not, probably we have some ideas to support in other places in the region with our knowledge, with our United States equipment, to working together.
I mean, is this a plan?
This is an idea to move in how to create this. Probably we can talking to create a plan to do that.
In other words, to create a sort of international, not international, but a regional
combined or bilateral unit or
disaster unit that could go to
exactly.
in fact, a sort of special forces really that deals with disasters.
Sometimes these kind of forces that are very good to deal with the first moment that we need to stay on the foot or is
right.
And also I think the exchange technology, because in Chile have a very good smart young people to
right.
work in new things. And we have some very interesting project with the United States Armed Forces and to create these kind of exchanges.
For example?
For example, how we deal with the very high altitude behavior for the human life.
Right.
Because we have a lot of experience in the very high altitude unit.
Yes, of course, yeah.
And also how we deal with this very special geographic phenomena as a earthquake or tsunami.
Right.
We designed a very good landscape and some software to create some, no prevention, but to see more in detail what happened with the risk areas.
And I see. Yes. Oh, really? That's
yeah.
interesting. Well, that's thank you very much on behalf of Diplomatic Connections.